If you're ready to try your hand at knitting garments, this is a great place to start. This casual, easy-to-knit top offers an off-the-shoulder look that's great for pairing with a light shawl on a breezy day. The step-by-step tutorial is coming up. For this project, we'll be working with Karen X Pantone yarn. It comes in a big variety of colors, so you can get really creative with it, and the first thing you'll notice is it comes in braids like this. So before you can actually get started, you'll want to dissect the braid and roll each into a ball. It takes a little extra patience, but it's a great little task to do while you're watching TV. You'll need a main color braid, that's this one here, and a separate solid braid, and you'll also need a contrast color braid. Now keep in mind this pattern is available in sizes extra small through 5XL, so you'll want to refer to the pattern for the exact yarn requirements for the size you want to make. Okay, let's get started with the band. Since we'll use the long tail cast on, we need a nice long tail to get started. And I want to show you a little trick that I use to guesstimate how long I need the tail to be. So working with your main color, wrap it around the needle 10 times. So each wrap is about the amount you need for one stitch, so this length, we'll say, is the amount we need for about 10 stitches. Then keep flipping, counting by 10 as you go. Now I'm making the medium size, so I'm counting up to 8 for 80 stitches, plus I'll add a little extra for those few extra stitches. Now using the long tail cast on, go ahead and cast on the number of stitches it says in the pattern for the size you want to make. But if you're a little unsure about the long tail cast on, here's how you do it. Place the loop over the needle and steady it with your finger. Then grab the yarn in your hands like this. Swing the needle down, then up, and release your thumb loop over the tip of the needle. By the way, you can view the pattern for free on my website, or if you prefer to have a copy in hand to print or save for later, you can download the PDF from my shop. I'll have a link in the description below for both options, so you can do what works best for you. Now with all your stitches cast on, the first row is pretty simple. We'll work a 1 by 1 rib for the band. So to do that, knit the first stitch, and purl the next. And keep going. Knit 1, purl 1 to the end of the row. Now you should end with a knit 1 if you've done everything correctly. Then go ahead and turn your work, and row 2 is pretty similar, but we're flipping the order a little bit here to keep the pattern consistent. This time we'll start with a purl 1, and then knit 1, and that's our repeat. Purl 1, knit 1. So if you're more of a visual kind of person, you're purling the purls and knitting the knits. And that's all there is to the band. Simply repeat the last 2 rows and check the pattern for how many times you should repeat it because it's a little different for each size. And when you do, it'll look something like this. Now we're ready for the contrast colors. This is the fun part. So choose whichever color in your braid that you want to use first, and we'll add that here in the first stitch. So leave yourself a nice long tail to weave in later, and insert your needle knitwise in the first stitch. Then to secure the new yarn, just place the new color on the needle, pull it through to finish the stitch, and it's a good idea to work another stitch or two. And then you can tie the two ends together and secure it. So for these contrast color stripes, we'll be working with the stockinette stitch. So for this row, you'll continue to knit all stitches. And then purl all stitches in the next row. So that's your standard stockinette pattern when you're working with rows. You knit a row and then you purl a row. So keep working in the stockinette stitch with this first color and refer to the pattern again for the number of rows you need because it's a little bit different for each size. Alright, at the end of that little repeat, it'll look something like this. We've got our first stripe completed, and next we want to add a main color stripe. So insert your needle knitwise and add the main color just like before. Now this time, purl the next stitch. And get everything nice and secure. So this time, rather than working in stockinette, we're working with a seed stitch pattern. So for this row, continue with this repeat. Knit one, purl one. Then we'll do the same thing for the next several rows. Knit one, purl one. But this time you'll notice we're knitting the purls and purling the knits, which is what creates the seed stitch texture. So work this repeat for a total of 4 rows, and that's for all sizes. So believe it or not, that's really all you need in order to complete this entire top. But let's have a look at the stripe pattern moving forward so you know what to do there. So we have a contrast color stripe worked in stockinette stitch, followed by a main color stripe worked in the seed stitch. So using the techniques you just saw, keep working through the stripe repeat until you've used all 5 contrast colors. But when you get to the last main color stripe, instead of working 4 rows, go ahead and work 9. We want that one a little bit thicker at the top of our top. Now that brings us to the bind off. Go ahead and knit the first stitch and purl the next. Then pass the first loop over the last. Knit the next stitch and pass the first loop over. Now we're still working in our seed stitch pattern here, we're just binding off as we go. When only one loop remains on your needle, go ahead and fasten off, and of course repeat all the previous steps to make your second panel. Now something you'll notice right away is the sides want to curl in a bit here, and the panel can really benefit from a little wet blocking. I like to soak the entire panel first, then pin it out to the final measurements listed in the pattern. Then let it dry completely before you remove the pins. When the blocking is done, the last thing we need to do is work the seams. Now I'll be the first to admit seaming is not my strong point, but a little patience goes a long way. And if you make a mistake, it's as easy as this to rip it out and try again. So my best advice is to do the seaming when you have lots of time and lots of patience. We spend so much time knitting our projects, we often want to rush through the seaming process. I'm totally guilty of that, and that's why my seams are sometimes messy. So just take a little extra time, treat it as if you're doing regular stitching, so your seams come out nice. Now, one little trick that I found here is that it works really well to use the tails to seam each section because the colors match and I don't have to worry about the other color popping through. You'll want to keep seaming until you reach the armhole depth. That part is spelled out in the pattern for you if you refer to step number 2 of the assembly for the armhole depth. The shoulder seams are very much the same, just refer to step 4 for the shoulder seam length as well. That's all for now, friend. Don't forget to check the description below for a link to where you can check out the pattern, and thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Your support watching, liking, and commenting on my tutorials, checking out the patterns on my website, and buying the PDFs from my shop is a huge, huge help, and there's no way I could keep doing what I'm doing without it. Happy knitting, and I'll see you in the next one.